couple of days.
Couple of days.
Yeah.
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Now, do you remember anything about those 2 days?
Yes, I do. Very much.
So, can you tell me? We'll start from there.
Okay.
During those days, what did you think you got from me?
Okay.
What do you think is my focal attention on?
You asked me, what
You are from New Zealand, are you?
Pardon me?
Are you from part of
New Zealand.
New Zealand.
Yes,
New
yes.
Zealand.
You asked me, what does Christine want that she hasn't got now? And I have used that a lot. In fact, it was the theme of my trip right through India, which kept bringing me back to this.
When you came here first,
Yeah.
did you come here with a particular purpose? Here, I mean, to me.
Yes.
Or was it part of an Indian tour?
Oh, it was part of an Indian tour with my 2 daughters to show them India. We met in India
Oh, really?
23 years ago.
Or longer.
24 years ago, whatever.
25.
So you're not blaming India?
No. We're thanking India for that opportunity.
I see, yeah.
But my question now,
You came really as a tourist then. Is that right? Would that be right?
well,
You
one
came to India as a tourist.
is
Or did you have interest in the spiritual
no,
aspect of
spiritual aspect, very,
I
very
see. And your daughters, both.
most important.
You and your daughters.
Yes.
How old are the daughters?
They're 23 and 22.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. So all 3 of you were interested in spirituality,
Yes.
which India still seems to represent.
Yes.
And before you came here, where else did you go?
Well, before, like in India or?
No, when you came here, did you come here first and then went
Yes,
on a
first
tour of
here.
India?
First here. You
I
were
see.
the first place where we set off to do our trip to India.
I see.
First of all, we come to Ramesh. That is our how we set our journey together.
I see.
And it was very, very good because we let things happen. We just allowed life or God or source to unfold,
Yes.
and it
yes.
worked very well.
Oh, I'm glad. I see.
And it continues to work very
So
well.
during those 2 days, what did it bring about any change in your attitude or actual living?
Yes. Yes.
Can you tell how the change happened?
Yeah.
In what way the change is?
The idea
In
that-
your daily living.
Yeah.
You see, let me tell you, the whole thing is the spiritual. The word is now spiritual, meaning not material. I think that's totally wrong. Spiritual for me means something which makes the material life more interesting, happier. Usual is spiritual and material. So the usual understanding is spiritual versus material. Mine is not that at all.
Huh?
My spirituality is that which makes the material more interesting, more acceptable.
That's good.
See what I mean? That's the big difference between my viewpoint, my perspective and the usual perspective. And it is for that reason that my focal question has always been, for which I didn't have any answer. I am, as a Hindu, as a Hindu Brahmin, I am supposed to seek enlightenment as the ultimate thing. My point was, what precisely is enlightenment? And supposing I do get enlightened, what will I have for the rest of my life that I didn't have before? See what I mean? Totally practical thing.
Yeah, practical. That's good.
What happened before life, after, who the hell is concerned? I am not. Ramesh as a separate entity living this life is not concerned. See what I mean? But what the Hindu religion particularly does, is to take you in your previous birth, next birth, and the birth after that, and you're finished. And you as an individual is finished.
Yeah.
I say no, to hell with the rest of it. I'm only concerned with my happiness. So, as I keep saying, for 30, 40 years, I pursued enlightenment and ended up totally frustrated. I had two gurus. None of them would specifically say what precisely is meant by enlightenment. More important, what is enlightenment supposed to do for me for the rest of my life that I didn't have before?
Yeah.
These two, for me, the two most valid points. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Rest of it, who's concerned? I'm not concerned.
Yeah. All the rest is ideas.
No, I mean, what I mean is, I can't keep separate from what there is. So much poverty and so much poverty and disease and hunger, it's there. So, therefore I decided. For 30 years I'm frustrated, so after I retired from work, I said that 60 years have gone. For the rest of my life, which is presumably very much shorter than 60 years, all I shall pursue is happiness for myself, totally selfish. So the question came to me, am I not concerned with the poverty and the hunger and the disease of millions of people? I am. Therefore, to the extent that I can, I do help. I don't say I'm not concerned with it. When I say I have nothing to do with it, all I mean is I am not going to go out of my way unless that is my destiny and my destiny makes me go that way as a do-gooder, as an activist. But otherwise, knowing that I am not concerned with the poverty and everything, it doesn't mean that if I meet a beggar or someone not suffering from something, not that I won't help him or her, I will, to the extent that I feel at that time. And the circumstances, how much money I have on me. But so what I mean is, when I say I'm not concerned, I don't keep myself away from it. Not my job. If I come across someone who needs any help, I shall certainly help. Subject to that, I'm not concerned what happens to the rest of the world. And this particular person I came to, who needed help, even according to me, even that is a happening. It happened because it had to happen according to God's will, cosmic law. It was a situation for me to deal with, and I dealt with it the way I feel I should deal with it. So my point is, after retirement, I decided to pursue happiness, personal happiness for me. Make no mistake, totally selfish. Spiritual? What's spiritual about it? But the beauty of it is, usually people pursue spiritual path and end up thoroughly proud of their achievement and consider themselves scholars, superior human beings, or frustrated. So this way, I decided to find my own happiness. And therefore, I'm at some pains to make it clear. Therefore, what I'm telling you is from personal experience. I'm not comparing myself with the great Buddha. But what the Buddha said was so right. Buddha says, don't believe a word of what I say. Don't believe a word of what anybody says unless you experience the truth of it, the fact of it. And that is what I incidentally happened to do. I said, I am concerned only with my happiness. You see what I mean? Therefore, I am talking from personal experience. And what I am telling you is, I pursued happiness and I got happiness that I wanted. I got the happiness that I wanted. And suddenly, my material search turned out to be a spiritual search. My selfish search for happiness. When I did get that happiness, suddenly it turned out that it was truly the spiritual search everybody should be after. Because that happiness which I got was my very nature. My very nature. That is why I take some pain to say, I am talking from experience. I am not parroting anybody's words, vocal or written. So, very first day, I want happiness. Therefore, what do? In seeking, pursuing happiness, what is my first step? Wouldn't that be right? So what would you say? If you were pursuing happiness for yourself and you are retired, what would be the first step you would take? That's another thing. Here, I don't give a lecture, I discuss things. We participate in it. So I'm trying to get you to participate in my experience. Where would you begin? That's more my part. If you decided that for the few years that you have left, 10 years, 20 years, as against 60 years which have gone, pursuing personal happiness, where would you start?
Well, I probably would start to make sure that everything is all.
Your name?
Excuse me. Edward. Edward, yes.
Edward, yeah. Yes, Edward.
I would start probably to make sure everything is all right, that things are arranged properly, so you could just relax and be yourself, basically. I would make sure you wouldn't have to worry about material problems, first of all, I think.
You mean you would let things go? That there is nothing to pursue? Whatever is happiness? Acceptance about is happiness? It could be a very good idea. Is that what you mean?
No, I just mean...
what I understood from you is that you would say there is nothing to be done. Happiness is what I have.
Yes.
Isn't that what you said?
Well, yes, it probably is true, but I'm struggling with the concept, what do you do to be happy in the way you say it? What can be done? I don't know really.
No, what I'm saying is, first and foremost, Edward, is what am I seeking? What am I seeking? I'm seeking happiness. What am I seeking? I'm seeking happiness. Where would I find it? By God's grace, I have been a reasonably comfortable man all my life, for which I've always been grateful to God. I've always been consciously grateful to God for putting me in a position in this life where I've been reasonably comfortable all my life. Therefore, I know what pleasure is. I've enjoyed many pleasures. I've not enjoyed all the pleasures in life, but I know what pleasure is. So, if I know what pleasure is, and I have enjoyed pleasure, what am I seeking? See what I mean? That's where I started. What do I mean? Pleasure. I know pleasure. What do I mean by happiness? No more pain? It's impossible. The ground rules of the game of life is one moment pleasure, one moment pain. You never know which. That is the basic rule of life. Therefore, it cannot be that for happiness I am pursuing something which will remove pain. No power on earth can do that. Because, according to my concept, everything is already done. The movie is already in the can. And the science supports it. The science supports it. At the Big Bang, in that present moment, the entire life story was there. Already done. Everything is predetermined. That's my concept. And the most well-known physicist, mathematician, the one in the invalid in the armchair, Stephen Hawking. He has gone on to say, not his concept, he is the truth as he has seen it. He said, he has written an essay, Is Everything Predetermined? 10 or 12 pages. He discusses various aspects in astonishingly simple language. And then, he in a 4-line conclusion, he says, is everything predetermined? Question mark. Yes, comma, it is full stop.
So that doesn't, whatever we do,
has already been done.
Yeah.
Has already been done. We are watching the movie frame by frame by frame of what is now.
Yeah.
But what's going to happen 10 days or 10 years or 10 centuries later has already happened.
So when you say, you're not this is not the doer,
Yeah.
then to just, how do you do that? You say, I live my life constantly connected to the source. So that can you explain that a little bit more?
Say that again, please.
On your book here.
Yes.
I live my life
Yes.
constantly connected to the source.
Yes.
Yeah. So how do you do that?
No, what happens is, what is fundamental, that's a very important point. Fundamentally, what is a human being? A three-dimensional object. The unmanifest source has become the manifestation. The unmanifest source has become the manifestation. And the manifestation means the totality of all the various kinds of objects. All the kinds of objects. First there is a stone in which there is no life. Then there is a growing plant which grows by itself. Nobody has to water it. There is life in the growing plant which turns it into a tree. Third, there is the animal, where the three-dimensional object has 5 senses through which the individual animal sees, hears, smells, tastes and touches. And the animal has an ego. Ego being the sense of being a separate entity. A sense of separate entity and having separate possession. So your pet dog knows that he is your dog. He wouldn't care to see you pet another dog. So he knows what is his. So the ego of the animal, there is separation. In fact, the basis, the core of the ego is separation. I am different from you. And finally, there is the human being, who is an animal, who has life, senses, ego. But in the ego of the human beings, God or the source has put in the sense of personal doership. In the animal, there is not a personal, everything happens. Everything happens. But the human being, God has put in the soul, in the ego, sense of personal doership. I am separate from you. I am responsible for what I do, and you are responsible for what you do. That is the situation. Therefore, my point is, whatever else a human being may have achieved in life, the fundamental fact is that every human being is fundamentally a three-dimensional object. See what I mean? The stone, the growing plant, the animal, the human being. All four are fundamentally three-dimensional objects. Therefore, a three-dimensional object cannot do anything. And yet the three-dimensional object is supposed to function in life as a separate entity responsible for his actions to the society. How can that happen? That happens because for daily living to happen, for interhuman relationships to happen, the source of God was compelled to connect itself with each human object and animal object and function through that particular individual animal or human being and bring about whatever is supposed to happen according to God's will, His will, or according, I added, according I prefer, according to cosmic law. So that is what the universe is for me. What is happening? What is happening is the source of God has connected himself or itself with each human being and brings out whatever is supposed to happen according to his will or cosmic law. Precisely as electricity or gas functions through appropriate instruments and brings out whatever is supposed to happen. Electricity functions through the bulb and brings light. Electricity functions through the fan and brings about breeze. Gas comes and you use it for food, for fire. See what I mean? Therefore, what is the front picture is? It is the source connected to every living being. The source connected with every living object and functioning through that object brings about whatever is supposed to happen, precisely the way it is supposed to happen, through that object.
So when you say that that's the way it's supposed to happen, is there a way that it's not supposed to happen?
That is...
Is that destiny too?
No, it is not supposed to happen. You think it is not so. You decide, you tell me what is there. Therefore, the most important thing which I should have told you earlier, whatever I say is a concept. Whatever anybody has said, scriptures 5,000 years ago, is a concept jotted down by some human being. He may say I was inspired by God, maybe, but still you wrote it. Therefore, whatever we know as knowledge is a concept. And the basis of a concept is that it has an interconnected opposite. You proved it. I said this is my concept, and you say supposing you did. So what you just proved what the concept is. Concept is my opinion. And therefore a concept has to have other opinion.
So you say, what would enlightenment give me? And I would say the ability to be able to be at ease with myself, with Source. Yeah? I would like that.
Yes. Now, where did you find it? Who certified it? Who certified it?
Because I feel it.
Therefore, my most important point, which I don't think has been underlined clearly by anybody. Have you come across it before? That enlightenment is not a certified event. Jesus Christ enlightened. Who says so? Ramana Maharshi is enlightened. Who says? Is there a Ramana Maharshi, you tell somebody, he is enlightened. So he'll go and say, what are you looking for? A certificate that he is enlightened. And I want to see God's signature.
Yes.
Certifying Ramana Maharshi as an enlightened person. Therefore, the most important thing, which unfortunately has never been underlined, is that enlightenment, which every Hindu is supposed to pursue, is a concept. Is a concept. Therefore, whoever claims or is ready to confess that he is enlightened has to be according to a concept. See what I mean?
So give up those. Give up the concepts.
No, but you are, but you want to. You can't give up concepts. You are living on concepts. Your life itself is a concept.
But when you say concepts, isn't that conditioned like beliefs that we live out?
Therefore, what I'm saying is, if Ramana Maharshi confesses that he is enlightened according to his own concept. According to his own concept. If you ask me, am I enlightened? I will say, yes, I am enlightened, according to my concept. It so happens that my concept of what is enlightenment is totally in agreement with the concept of Ramana Maharshi and the Buddha. Happens to be. My concept happens to be precisely the same as that of Ramana Maharshi or even the Buddha. There is a book here, Ramana Maharshi, Essence of
Pointers from Ramana.
Pointers from Ramana Maharshi. Very interesting book, especially for those who are Ramana Maharshi scholars.
We are going there on our...
You have?
We are staying in the ashram.
Because you will find in this book what these brilliant domes have swept under the carpet. And those things which swept under the carpet form the real concept of enlightenment. Now, enlightenment. You ask me, am I enlightened? I said, yes. According to my concept. So, on what is the concept? I consider myself enlightened on the basis that I am totally accepted. I have been able, more accurately, I have been able to accept totally. Everything in the world is a happening according to a cosmic law. The source of God functioning through a particular three-dimensional object and bringing about whatever is supposed to happen. How each happening affects whom? It hurts you and helps me, or hurts me and helps her, is again according to God's will, cosmic law, through which three-dimensional object through which person the happening happened, which the society calls my action, your action, her action, is also according to God's will, cosmic law. The human being is incapable of doing any deed. For me, total acceptance of this concept means enlightenment, my concept. Promptly, someone who asked me, am I enlightened? He said, but tell me, do you still suffer physical pain? I said, oh yes. Do you still suffer grief? Yes. Do you have knowledge at any moment of anything that happens in the world? No. Do I have special powers to heal anybody, merely looking at you or touching at you? No. Then how can you be enlightened? Because that is the concept which most people have of enlightenment, of an enlightened being. In deepest word, the general impression is, and which our gurus have not done anything to change, is that an enlightened man is God. An enlightened person is God. And you must give him, your guru, the enlightenment, same respect that you give to God. In Hindu thing, that is the whole point. The guru is God. Therefore, when you understand, you take whatever your guru gives you, you have become God. So therefore, what will enlightenment do for me? I ask myself, why is it that nobody really is interested? I mean, what will enlightenment do for me as happiness in this life? Most people are not. Must be a reason. The reason I found was that they saw no reason to question. When I am enlightened, I will be God. If I am God, I shall want nothing. And they have forgotten, in the meantime, that Jesus Christ suffered pains on the cross. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa suffered the pain of cancer. Nisargadatta Maharaj suffered from cancer. And Ramana and Ramakrishna Paramahamsa was seen and heard shouting, Mother, why are you torturing me? So they know that even the most acknowledged enlightened person suffered pain. What about psychological pain? Psychological pain and physical pain are biological reactions. The ego has nothing to do with it. Ramana Maharshi, a letter came to him from a village that a personal friend of his since school days, they worked and played together, they lived and played together. Then he came into the ashram, lived there for many years. Finally, when he was too sick, his son came and took him to his village. And the letter came that he had died. So when the news of the death of his son, tears came into Ramana Maharshi's eyes. Tears came into a body-mind organism as a biological reaction which is called grief. But what he did not do, which the ordinary person does, is to turn the grief of the moment into a mourning over a period. And society decides the period of the mourning. The moment he read, there were tears in it, few seconds later there was a bell for the lunch. So he said, come, let's go and have lunch. He didn't say, you go and have lunch. My friend has just died. How can I eat? No. He went and enjoyed his lunch as much as the next person. Therefore, the pain is of the moment. The difference is, the ordinary person turns grief a momentary biological reaction into a time-bound mourning. That is the difference. But he still feels the pain. And he knows, and yet the belief is so strongly, when I have enlightened, I'll become God. Therefore, they don't really bother to find out precisely what will enlightenment give me. Why? Because everything. I'll be God. Will God want anything? And it's so deep, they don't even bother. Whereas the point of this, and therefore they say, who becomes God? The enlightened person becomes God. That is, the ego becomes God. And that clearly proves they have not clearly thought about or understood what the ego is. What is the ego? Well, there are two, Ramesh and this body-mind organism. This body-mind organism is part of the manifestation, that is clear. But Ramesh is not a thing. Therefore, Ramesh cannot be part of the manifestation. So what is Ramesh? And Ramesh, according to my concept, is the connection between the source and this body-mind organism. Ramesh is so empty as merely a connection between the source of God and this body-mind organism. And whatever I think I'm doing is being brought about as a happening by the source of God through this body-mind object, which, because the ego of sense of personal doership, I consider my action. That is my conceptual mechanism. So in life, if I think ignorance or whatever, I don't believe in any. I'm the doer and I'm responsible. And what is more, it proves. I can prove it in any situation which you and I face. You have the total free will to do whatever you like in that situation. I have the total free will to do what I want in that situation. So in the same situation, you will do what you want, I shall do what I want, and the society will judge what we have done and reward you or punish me. That is daily living for the day, which is entitled to assume. That is a fact. What is daily living? Every human being, anyone on earth, is facing a situation and has to deal with the situation. Dealing with the situation means deciding what do I want in that situation and what do I do in order to get what I want. And I do it. Therefore, I am the doer of whatever I had to do in a given situation. Therefore, how can you say that you are not the doer? So what is the basis of accepting totally I am not the doer? The basis is extraordinarily simple, but overlooked by the average person. And that is, fact number one, I am the doer. Fact number two, I have never had any control over the result of my action. second fact is forgotten. The human being forgets the second fact. I have just done whatever I wanted to do. How can you say I am not the doer? But he forgets the fact that whether that which he has done will bring him pain or pleasure, he has no control. That he forgets. So in life, what is daily living? Really a joke. I do whatever I think I should like to do, or I feel I should do. The psychopath, the murderer, does precisely that. So he commits a murder, and I do something good, which I think is good, but the society somehow, according to their regulations, come to the conclusion that what I thought I had done a good thing was bad for the community or whoever it is. And the person he was supposed to murder and thought he had murdered was the most wanted man in the police. So he had killed a terrorist. So he will be honored, and I shall be punished. Therefore what I am saying is, I am free to do whatever I want. What happens, what is everybody's experience? Sometimes I have got what I wanted, sometimes I have not got what I wanted, and sometimes what I got was beyond expectation. Many times for the worse, sometimes for the better. There was a young relation of mine, not very, I say young, but she is now 55. When she was in college, she was brilliant, but not interested in getting a rank or anything like that. So all she would do is listen to the talk in the class very carefully and jot. But she didn't do much homework or reading. She didn't really care. Fairly comfortable in life. So when the results were declared, she opened the paper, went through the list of those who were passed. Her name was not there. So she said, all right, I have failed. She went back to sleep. But her sleep was disturbed every half an hour. So many of her friends telephoned and congratulated her for getting a second class. She went only through the pass list, not in the pass list, therefore she failed. But she was in the higher list where her second class. Result for the examination was beyond her expectation, for the better. But sometimes the other way happened. Now that my grandson, he lives in Bangalore with my daughter. He did 4 years studies, college studies here, big Bachelor of Commerce. See, he did his accountancy paper. Came in the evening with a big smile on his face. So he said, you have done well. He said, Grandpa, I have not committed a single mistake. Accountancy, mind you, so he knows, there's no question. I have not made a single mistake. And you know, in the rest of the things he got first class marks, but in the accountancy paper, he got totally beyond what he expected. Obviously something was wrong. So we made an application, the usual routine, and they found that the marks of 2 questions were not included in the total. You see? So he was turned from a pass class to a first class, or from a second class to a first class. But his certified thing says he's a second class, because this happened after that. So he's really the letter, official letter there, the first class. So my point is, all you have the right is action. The result of the action has never ever been in your control. Fact number one, fact number two. But the fact number two is interpreted. That means I have no control. That means I am not the doer. Should be. But I am still the doer. And you are. In other words, how do you interpret both these together? It means the human being does have the birthright, the total free will to deal with any situation any way he wants. But it is worthless in practice because you have no control over the result. See what I mean? Not that you do have the birthright to do whatever you want. It's your right, birthright. But in actual daily living, it's worthless. But then what they say, but that means I have no free will. Combine the two and what the result? My result is that it is worthless in practice. Usually that it means I have really no control, no free will. So I say, suppose you buy a machine, an expensive machine, which does some wonderful technical things. You buy it, you call your friends, and you want to show them. Earlier you had done it scores of times. But when you are demonstrating the machine to press the button, nothing happens. You press it 10 times, nothing happens. Does it mean you have no machine? Does it mean you have no machine? Or does it mean that you do have the machine, but it is worthless? So in daily living, that is the position. And in life, what happens? I do whatever I feel like doing. The result is one of three things. And thereafter what happens? Thereafter, the society in which I live cannot know what I have done, cannot know what the psychopath has done. The society is obliged to accept what has happened, one of those three things, as my action. Judge it as good or bad according to existing social regulations and legal provisions. Reward me or punish me. Reward from the society means pleasure, punishment from the society means pain. And that is daily living. In any situation you do whatever you feel like doing, but you can never know whether it will result in pleasure or pain, which you have to accept. Most people are not able to accept that. They keep grumbling and whining, and what kind of a God is this? Why should I be doing this? And therefore they are unhappy. The intermediate stage is where I was. I accepted it. I accepted that is the way it is. I have no choice in being born. Once I am put in a prison, I have to carry out the prison rules. Otherwise, I shall be punished. If I don't want to be punished, I have to follow the prison rules. The prison rules mean if there is pleasure, I accept the pleasure, I enjoy the pleasure. If there is pain, I suffer the pain. That is my... So as far as I was concerned, that is all I could have done. So, my happiness means, normal happiness means, being able to enjoy the pleasure that you have and suffer the pain. But my experience was that when I was enjoying the pleasure, something could happen and destroy that pleasure. if I were suffering a pain and accepted it at a certain intensity, something could happen and increase that intensity beyond bearing. Therefore, even accepting that was not real happiness. Or acceptance. Any guru, what is the most favorite word? Acceptance. Acceptance of what? Acceptance of what is. Acceptance of what is means what? If there is pleasure, you enjoy the pleasure. If there is pain, you suffer the pain. That's it. But that is not the end of it. The end of it is that you are not allowed to enjoy your pleasure in peace or suffer your pain in peace. Something can happen to destroy that pleasure or intensify your pain. So, in my search, I came to the conclusion that happiness means the removal of that which has the power to smash my pleasure and intensify my pain. See what I mean? So when I was seeking happiness, the very first conclusion I had to come to before proceeding, as I told you, before I proceed, I must know what is happiness. What am I pursuing? What is happiness? And I came to the conclusion that the happiness means removal of that which prevents my happiness from being. In other words, the most important conclusion I came to from my own personal experience, the happiness that every human being is seeking, which the religious people put into the word enlightenment, which is true. Enlightenment is the happiness. You pursue enlightenment with the idea that you are pursuing happiness and your happiness goes farther and farther away. My experience was I pursued happiness, and when I got happiness, this is enlightenment. So I decided the happiness I am pursuing has nothing to do with the pleasure in life. I mean all the pleasure, but I will still be seeking this. Therefore, if my happiness does not depend on the pleasures in life, it certainly doesn't depend on the pains in life. Therefore, my happiness does not depend on anything that happens in life. Isn't that the most important conclusion? My happiness in this life does not depend on what happens in life. Therefore, it depends only on my attitude to life. Not on what happens in life, but in my attitude to life. And there I got stuck for a long while. Lot of misery. What do I mean by my attitude to life? Do I mean my attitude towards little children? Do I mean my attitude towards animals? Do I mean my attitude towards hunger? Do I mean my attitude towards the terrorists or warmongers? What do I mean by my attitude to life? Too wide a world. Until I came to the conclusion, and that I had a lot of misery, throwing out every answer that came as being inadequate. The only adequate answer I came to was, the only way I can have this happiness is if I have my attitude to life, means my attitude towards the other. Daily living. What do I mean by daily living? From morning till night. What does daily living consist of? Relationship with the other. The other may be my parent. For the baby, it is the parent. The parent or some relative, close relative, or a distant relative, or a neighbor, or someone connected with my business or occupation, or a total stranger. So the next question was, what has been my attitude towards the other, whoever the other is, closest relative or the most distant stranger. All these years, which has not brought me the happiness I want. This is step by step. What would you say has been your attitude towards the other, whoever the other is? Different for different people. Different for yourself, different for your brother, and so on. Therefore, I said, I'm not happy. Therefore, in order to be happy, I have to have a relationship with the other, which is whoever the other is, closest relative or the most distant stranger. My attitude towards him must be the same. And that attitude must be the same, which must be harmonious. Otherwise, unhappiness. I'm unhappy now because my relationship with the other has not been harmonious. Therefore, my happiness, I got the answer. My happiness depends on a harmonious relationship with the other, whoever the other is. That is the final conclusion I came to, which is precisely what the religion from time immemorial have been saying as universal brotherhood. Universal brotherhood. But who bothered to explain what the universal brotherhood there? How can anyone treat everybody as a brother? Universal brotherhood. Oh, basis of my religion is universal brotherhood. No. I am a Hindu, Saraswat Hindu Brahmin, that's the caste. Well, someone belonging to my caste was supposed to be an enlightened Sufi. At a marriage, I met him in Bangalore. He himself acknowledged that he is an enlightened Sufi. He had several disciples. Nice man, very nice man, humble, no pride, nothing. Incidentally, at one point he committed suicide. He jumped from his third floor. And it was interpreted as thinking that he got a message from God, your life is over, jump. Interpretation. Anyway, I met him. I've met him after a long time. So we started talking. And I told him, we are supposed to be a Sufi guru. So he said yes. So I said, what is the basis of the Sufi universal brotherhood? Universal brotherhood. So I asked him, if a leper came to you close by and admiring your Sufi guruness, he wanted to embrace you, would you embrace him? Universal brotherhood. He was angry. He said, let's stick to the point. And I told him, I am sticking to the point. So we parted. So, the only way I came to the conclusion, the only way I can have happiness for myself is if I can have a harmonious relationship with the other, whoever the other is. Therefore, what is the harmonious relationship? What is the basis of the harmonious relationship? You see how step by step I go. What would you say? What would you say is the basis of harmonious relationship? What would you say? Offhand, what would you say? What is the basis of a harmonious relationship with the other? including the fact that you are not prepared to embrace the other leper.
Taking off the judgments.
Embracing or not is a biological reaction. And 9 times out of 10, the biological reaction, even a child, but thereafter the ego may convince himself. But the biological reaction is not a harmonious relationship. Therefore, I came to the conclusion, the basis of a harmonious relationship is not to condemn anybody for anything, neither myself nor the other. In other words, a harmonious relationship is such that I am never uncomfortable with myself and I am never uncomfortable with the other. And the only way that can happen is if I am able to accept totally the human being, a three-dimensional object, is incapable of doing anything. The three-dimensional object is connected to the source of God, who does all the functioning with the millions of human beings with whom there is a connection, and that is what is happening. But the connection gets broken as soon as I condemn anyone for anything, as he is doing, mine or the other. And in most people, the connection remains broken day after day, month after month, year after year. But once there is an understanding that you are not the doer, once that you are not the, you cannot be the doer. You cannot be the doer. You cannot be the doer for two reasons. One, you are a three-dimensional object. Two, in the human being, whatever you do, research, scientific research has proved that whatever you think and do can be traced to some gene or the other. So whatever anybody does at any time is based on two factors, your genes and your conditioning. I have no control over being born to particular parents, therefore I have no control over the genes. And if my genes are such that I have a short temper, there it is, it will happen. Whether it will happen or not is happening in God's control. But the chances are that anger may happen, or I am a timid man, or I am a generous man. All these feelings are not mine. They are part of the genes and the conditioning. Conditioning means just as I had no control over being born to particular parents, and therefore no control over genes, I had no control over being born to particular parents in a particular social level, upper class, upper middle class, lower middle class, or low class. In which class this body-mind organism has received a bombardment of conditioning from the way my parents and other relations behave in my family, the way people behave in that society, the people behave in my education, and and conditioning by the church or temple. All together saying, this is right, that is wrong. You must do this, you must not do that. So whatever I think is my action is based on these two factors over which I have no control. So even in theory, what I do is not in my control. In practice, I am free to do what I want, but the result is not in my control. So the point is, only if I am able to accept this fact, that whether I see my action as futile, no control over the result, or in theory I find that my fact is based on two factors over which I have no control. If I am able to accept totally that the human being is incapable of doing any deed, for me, I said, that is enlightenment. My concept of enlightenment, the human being is incapable of doing any deed. Fundamentally, he is only a three-dimensional object, through which the source functions and brings about whatever is supposed to happen. And that is precisely what has been conveyed by the four beautiful words in the Bible. Thy will be done. Nothing can happen. It doesn't need any interpretation. Nothing can happen unless it is God's will. And it is the same thing in Islam. In Hindu religion goes even further. The Hindu religion says, thou art the doer, thou art the experiencer. You do things through some three-dimensional object and you experience the result, pleasure of it, through another body-mind organism. You are the speaker, you are the listener. Now it appears, Ramesh speaks, and someone else listens, someone else speaks, Ramesh listens. But if all three of us were in deep sleep or sedated into unconsciousness, none of us would be able to do anything, neither speaking nor listening. Therefore, who does the speaking and the listening and everything? Consciousness. Consciousness as the source, or energy as the source, to use an impersonal thing, or for the masses, God, functions through every three-dimensional object, for which he has established a connection with each body-mind organism. And when this total enlightenment happens, total acceptance, I am incapable of hurting you and you are incapable of hurting me. If either of us is hurt, it is because it was our destiny to be hurt. Therefore a happening had to happen which would hurt us. Through which person that happening happened is irrelevant. Therefore the question of hating anybody simply does not arise. See what I mean? That is enlightenment, which brings the happiness. And what is the happiness? No burden of hatred for myself for my action, and no bigger burden of hatred for others for their action. I am incapable of hurting you, you are incapable of hurting me. Therefore, it's stupid to hate myself or hate you, the other. In other words, the happiness that human being wants means the absence of hatred, which stands between me and my birthright, which is happiness. And what is happiness? Therefore, what is really the happiness? Happiness means the removal of the suffering. Removal of the suffering which hatred brings. Ultimate happiness, I came to the conclusion, was the removal of the suffering which hatred brought about. And later on, I came across the Buddha's statement. He is the only one who had given me the two answers. According to my destiny, I couldn't come across them during my first 60 years. And he gave remarkably accurate. And the reason that I hadn't come across earlier was because most of the Buddhists were not aware of it. Because even to most Buddhists it is not acceptable. The Buddha's concept, what is enlightenment? The Buddha's concept, exactly what I said in his own words. In his own words, events happen, deeds are done, but there is no individual doer of any deed. That is enlightenment. What does enlightenment do? Enlightenment is the end of suffering. Enlightenment doesn't bring you ecstasy. Enlightenment is so accurate Enlightenment means the end of suffering. And what is the suffering? By that time I had come to know what it is. It is a hatred. Therefore, the happiness ever cannot be anything positive, because for the simple reason, anything positive would have to be pleasure in the course of life. Therefore, the true happiness we are seeking is that which we will have lost because of the hatred. So, happy we have to get back the happiness. This obstruction of hatred has to be removed. And the only way that can go is to be accept totally. I can't hurt you and you can't hurt me. Similarly, if somebody has helped me, I may consider him my friend, but I am also aware that if that is his and my destiny, 3 months later he could come and try to kill me, if that is what is supposed to happen. So, yeah, go, please.
Can destiny be changed? Some people say if you pray lots or if you meditate lots or whatever, you can make an effort to change destiny for the better. But from what you say, this doesn't seem to be the case.
Now wait a minute, it is the case.
It is the case. Oh well.
For the simple reason, in any situation, I'm sorry, I forget your name?
Edward.
Edward. And you are?
Christine. Christine?
Hussein.
Christine. Yeah.
So Edward, the whole point is, in any situation, it is your birthright to do anything you want, to improve yourself physically, mentally, temperamentally, spiritually, or financially. Only point is whether you succeed or not is not in your control.
So that's where destiny, so you can't, that's right, okay. So you can do what you have to do. If it's meant to be doing anything good, it will be good, and if it's not, then it isn't. So, but why care in that case?
I'm sorry?
Why care in that case if you can't know what happens?
That is the point, and that for me, frankly, is enlightened living. Frankly, that for me is enlightened living. Therefore, as I say, how do I live my life now? Very simple. In any situation, I know that I am not the doer, but the mechanism of daily living makes me do something or not do anything. So, in any given situation, I consider, because that is my biological nature, I consider the alternative very carefully and I come to a conclusion. This is what I should do. And I do it. Once I have done it, then I relax totally, knowing that whatever happens thereafter has already happened. Nobody can do anything about it. Why worry about it? Therefore, having done whatever needs to be done in a given situation, I sit back, witness life as if I am witnessing a movie. Whatever anybody seems to be doing is happening through that body-mind organism as a happening which is supposed to happen. Nobody does anything. Something funny makes me laugh. Something sad brings tears to my eyes. Something bad thing has happened, anger may arise. But I am never unaware that it is only a movie. So in this life, if I am aware that all this is happening, a biological reaction in each individual body-mind organism, whether the action I consider good or bad, it happens in the body-mind organism according to what is supposed to happen according to God's will, cosmic law. The individual simply does not exist for me to love or hate. That is my concept of enlightenment. The individual simply does not exist, whom you can hate or love. Because he is only a three-dimensional object. How can you love or hate a three-dimensional object? Through which the source functions. And when this total understanding is there, then while I do whatever I do and sit back and listen, my connection with the source is never broken. The moment I do whatever is this and sit back and witness whatever is happening as a movie, my connection with the source is not broken. So what is the sign of enlightened living? My connection with the source is never broken. I'm never uncomfortable with myself. I'm never uncomfortable with any other three-dimensional object either. Question?
Yes, sir. Are you...
One moment, please, one moment. Yes, sir. Your name?
Luke.
Luke.
Yes.
Look.
Luke.
Yes.
L-U-K-E.
Yes.
I see. What part of the world are you from?
I'm from Ireland.
Sorry?
Ireland.
Ireland. I see.
So it seems like a lot of fuss for a small question.
No, it's funny. No, I laugh. Because somehow a minimal number of percentage of Irish people come here.
Yes.
But I've seen a distinct recovery in their complexion.
We're very white.
You're right. There's more white in it. Than
We
the
go
pink.
red very easily.
So, I have a friend of mine, young, he might be about 50 now. His name is Gaurang.
Goran.
Gaurang. G-O-U-R-A-N-G.
Oh yes.
Gauranga.
Be happy.
No, Gauranga. White body. Complexion. And he is very fair. So once he came and sat there, and I found that he was fairer than every other foreigner except the Irish. So please.
So I was just listening to you talk.
What do you do in Ireland? Your business or occupation?
I teach yoga.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
So
And you can make a living out of it?
yes, I can make a living doing that.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yes, because I think yoga is spreading fast now.
Yes, it's quiet in Ireland. It's growing.
But it's good.
Yeah, it's growing.
Yes. So
Just as I was listening to you talk, I just wanted to know. Well, actually, I had a couple of questions arise. The first one was, what motivates you to talk every day? And do you not get tired of saying the same thing over and over and over?
a very good question. A very good question. Simple answer is because I'm enlightened. Anybody else will say because I'm enlightened. But what is to say what is the enlightenment? It's happened because I am enlightened. But what I would say is because being enlightened, I know that I am not the one who is doing the talking. Being enlightened, I know that me as an individual entity, as a three-dimensional object, cannot ever do any talking. Therefore, whatever happens, talking or any other thing, is done by the soul through the connection which he has established with me,
And is that not the same for anybody else?
including the villain and including the terrorist. Don't forget.
Yes.
Because the basis of the manifestation is functioning that we call life is duality. That's why I say, when the 7/11, 9/11, in the end, my wife and I were watching it on the TV. The first plane had already gone, and we were watching the plane before the second plane came, and we heard that plane is too close. In the TV, someone that plane is too close. Next second, then the whole thing collapses. So my wife and I and millions of people must have felt horror. But those few who planned and executed it would have fallen on their knees. Allah, you are great. We expected only about 15, 20 people to, now 3,000 people are dead. Allah, you are great. Isn't that right? So even everything, two ways. What some people consider right, some people consider wrong.
Right.
And it can be so bad. But in fact, in a village in India, the custom was no one from that village married another from the same village. They have to find a partner from an adjoining village. But here, two young people, they fell in love, they got married, and the respective families killed both of them. And the panchayat, the local people, did nothing about it. I don't know, later on the police may have come and done whatever. But without the slightest obstruction, each family killed his own son or daughter. And knew that they had done exactly what they should have done. Still it happened.
Yes.
Still it happened. Therefore, any happening is a happening which had to happen according to cosmic law.
Okay.
Therefore, no happening can be good, no happening can be bad. A happening is a happening, affecting whoever is to be affected, whichever way he is to be affected.
So then my other question was, just listening to you speak, you're talking about life happening as if it's a movie.
Yeah.
And my question is about your experience.
Yeah.
And whether or not you're experiencing the happening of your physical body and your mind also as being part of that movie.
Say that again, please.
My question is,
Yeah.
if you are experiencing the happening of your body as if it is also a part of the movie.
Oh, indeed.
Yes.
Indeed. In everything, including mine.
Yes. So does that mean that you're not identified with the body as such, and that you're identified, is there anything that you're identified with?
Is there anything who identifies with?
Good question.
Is there who are you talking about who has identified itself with this body, mind, organism and me?
Okay.
That is really the crux of the matter. Men missed almost hundreds of gurus. Kill the ego, kill the ego, kill the ego. Isn't that right?
Correct.
Ego is the problem. Your ego is the problem. Kill the ego. And my point is, you are the ego. You cannot have an ego. You are the connection of the source with this body, mind, organism. And you are merely an impression, an idea that you are an individual, so that created, so that life, interhuman relationships should happen. You are the ego. And that's one of the first things which I threw the existing stuff away. Kill the ego. I was shocked when even Ramana Maharshi is reported to have said, kill the ego. Now, in the case of Ramana Maharshi, there's one point. He spoke in Tamil. So what we read in the books in English may not be precisely what he said or intended to say. That you must never forget.
Can I ask you, are you the ego?
Everybody, the world is populated by egos. Other than the ego,
there is no person in the world who is not an ego.
No, there is either an ego or an immovable object.
Okay.
There's either an ego, human being or animal, or a stone or immovable object, in which there is no life. And therefore, I told you about Ramana Maharshi. So, what he said, government, but in English, I did read in one of the books, Ramana Maharshi is supposed to have said, kill the ego. So I was delighted. And sometime later, I came across Ramana Maharshi's words. The ego of the sage is like the remnants of a burnt rope. The ego of the sage is like the remnants of a burnt rope.
Burnt rope.
Burnt rope.
Burnt rope.
Burnt rope. The rope is still there. But it's a burnt rope. Ego of the sage is like the remnants of a burnt rope. My attention suddenly went to it. What is like the remnants of a burnt rope? What is like the remnants of a burnt rope? The ego of the sage. That means the sage has an ego. See what I mean?
Yes.
Therefore, clearly, what is the difference between an enlightened person has no ego. He has no separation. Rubbish. Every enlightened person has to live the rest of his life as the same ego, as the same person, until the last breath. The ego in the body, mind, organism remains as the same ego, whatever the implications of the ego. Therefore, Ramana Maharshi admitted that even the sage has an ego, which is what, and therefore the question really arises. We have been told difference between enlightenment is the existence or non-existence of the ego. And now I say that even the sage has to have an ego. Therefore the real question of enlightenment is, what is the difference between an enlightened sage who still has an ego and an ordinary person who also has an ego?
So is what you're saying is there's only an enlightened ego?
Yeah.
Okay.
There is an enlightened, but who is an enlightened ego? Therefore, the enlightened person also has an ego. So the real question is, if the difference between enlightened and not enlightened is the absence of the ego, no separation, I can understand it. But here if you say, the sage has an ego and I have an ego. Sage is enlightened, I am not. How can that be? Therefore, what is the difference between the ego of the sage and the ego of the ordinary person, which makes the sage enlightened and the ordinary person not? That is the real question on which not enough attention is paid, because they have accepted.
So are you saying that both the enlightened sage and the normal person, they both have ego?
They both have an ego.
There is both identification
With in the body as a separate entity.
Okay, and they're both identifying with the ego.
They two are the ego.
Okay, they are the ego.
They are the egos. They are the egos. Therefore, the difference is, why is one ego enlightened and why is another ego not enlightened? That is the question.
And so is what you're saying that the enlightened ego is the person who's accepted that he is not the doer.
Therefore, the answer is, even the sage has to live the rest of his life as the same ego who previously believed he was not enlightened. The ego who now knows he is enlightened is the same ego who previously lived knowing he was not enlightened. Therefore the question is, what is the difference between the ego of a sage or the sage as an ego and the ordinary person as an ego? Both are ego. The answer is simple. In the ego of the sage, the sense of personal doership has been uprooted.
So the unenlightened ego, he can think, I am not the doer, I am not the doer, I am not the doer, none of this is being done through me, but he can still be unenlightened.
Merely saying I am not enlightened doesn't make him enlightened. See what I mean? In fact, that would bring him a lot of grief. And some other person has said, they say, nobody home. Nobody home. So once I met someone who called nobody home. So I said, excuse me, but what you mean is, there is no home. If there is a home, there is somebody's home. If there is a body, there is an ego. So therefore, the original thing was, what is the difference between a sage and an ordinary person? The sage is no longer considers himself a separate entity.
But in the manifestation, he is still operating as a separate entity.
Which is, therefore, how can he say that he is not an ego, that he doesn't have an ego?
Yes.
That was my point. Therefore, even the sage.
So he's not experiencing himself directly as the manifestation of the unmanifest.
Therefore, he does not experience himself as God. That is the point. He is still a human being, with the same body, with the same weaknesses and plus and minus points, living his life exactly as he did before. Only one difference, and that is
he's happy. He's happy.
And that is, he, in any given situation, he does whatever he feels he is doing, and thereafter he sits back, witnesses whatever is happening, not as anybody doing a good thing or a bad thing, but a happening according to God's will, cosmic law. No question of hating anybody or loving anybody. In other words, the question is therefore, what is the difference between a sage and an ordinary person? The sage continues to be the ego.
So there's no fight.
The sage continues to be the ego, but in the ego of the sage, enlightenment has happened by his sense of personal doership has been uprooted. He totally believed from that moment on that nobody can do a good thing, nobody can do a bad thing. Everything is a happening.
I've got a question. In the scriptures it has been written that enlightened people, they develop cities and all kinds of supernatural powers. Like in yoga scriptures you can read that, or you hear about, it was said that the Buddha, when he walked somewhere, there was a huge big Buddha field, people could feel his presence. And so it's been described as being like a god, like a supernatural being. But as to what you say, this is not true.
Yeah. No, it is true.
It is true?
It is true, but it is true. There are people who have the gift of seeing the future. They do have the gift, but it is a gift.
It's not what they create, it's not a result of their actions.
Not something which they have earned or achieved.
Yeah.
That is, and they are not prepared to accept that. Oh, I'm enlightened, I have achieved. I can tell you what's going to happen to you. You see, that's the trouble. The sense of personal doership is still there. So long as the biggest sense of this principle of feeling that you are the doer is there, enlightenment is far away. Total acceptance. Nobody is capable of doing anything. Nobody is capable of harming me, and I am incapable of harming anybody. Everything is a happening, which is happening according to the cosmic law.
So these people who say that they have reached certain stages of enlightenment and they have certain powers, they can heal by touch maybe, or they can materialize things. What is this then?
No, the point is, enlightenment is after that, what happens? Or what happened even before that? Gift of a good thing or curse of a bad thing. It's a happening. It's a happening. And some with where these have happening are known in India or even otherwise as avatars. An avatar is a very funny thing, very funny thing. I've always wondered what is enlightenment. Similarly, what is an avatar? Obviously someone different from a sage. The avatar is generally supposed to be who can make things happen. But the avatar, if he thinks he is an avatar, if he knows that he is an avatar, will not think that he has done anything. But others would. Therefore, what is an avatar? Nobody told me. And yet, the remarkable thing is, there is one person, one yogi, one enlightened person, who did say clearly, and that is Nityanand, Muktanand's guru, Nityanand. And by that definition, he himself turned out to be a guru from my personal experience. He said, avatar is one whose word never goes wrong. Avatar is one whose word never goes wrong. That's it. You see? And then what happened was, my brother-in-law's mother they were together as young people. She has known him for a long time. So when he was established in Vajreshwari, she used to go at least once a month, sometimes twice a month, meet him personally. And he would talk to her in Konkani. He knew several languages, obviously. There's such a personal link between them. 40 years knowing each other or more. So when her son, my brother-in-law, my sister's husband, got into the police, she went and told Nityanand, my son has joined the police. And promptly, he said he'll be number one. At that time it was called IG. Now I think they call it DIG. DGP, the Director General of Police. At that time they used to say Inspector General of Police, IGP. He will be IGP. So the mother was very happy. And she came back and told him. He said, I told her, you know what Nityanand said? He said, you're going to be IGP. And the fellow couldn't stop laughing. He said, Mother, it's impossible. I have joined at the state level. At examination selected from the state at state level. There are 40 state level people chosen. And the IG is the number one. And the others are chosen at the central level. At the central level. So at the central level, if he is chosen at the central level, he will start with straight away with deputy superintendent or something like that. Or deputy, something high up, only second in command to the top man in the district. And he said, at the moment, he said, to make it simple for you, he said, there are thousands of people who are senior to me. On this basis, there are thousands of people senior to me. How can I ever be IGP? But when I heard it, I kept saying, if he said it, it will happen. So, over a period of 30 years, he used to have the regular sort of interview to find out promotion, one level to the other. So every time he went and came back, I would ask him, how did it go? Oh, it went badly. Because his nature was to give a straight answer. He could never be a hypocrite. And the straight answer is usually not something expected. So one particular one I remember. And he said, when he was at top of the wherever he is, in the district, he was the top of the district. So, and for him to go to a central level, that was the interview. He asked, look, and then I asked him, who was he said, one Mr. M. Sen or something. And I knew him as a brilliant officer, brilliant civilian officer, brilliant and straight as anything, no hanky-panky about it, and brilliant. So if he makes a choice, he makes a choice, genuine one. So I was very happy. So he said, today I made the worst blunder of my life. What happened? So he said, the question was, how would you take it? Or would you recommend a regulation that whoever comes into your room, whether it's an outsider or you are on the same level or your man who sits outside, the seaport, you have to offer him a seat, whoever it is. Every human being is the same. Therefore, every police officer must offer the seat even to his subordinate. So he said, I told him, that would be disastrous to the discipline in the police. That would be disastrous. So he said, all right, that's fine, you may go. So others were taken 20, 25, 30 minutes interview. And this man comes out in 5 minutes. So he was in terrible mood. Then the man after him was a friend of his. So he waited. So when he came out, he said, did he ask you that? He said, yes. And what was your answer? I said, of course. We are all human beings. In the eyes of God, they are all alive. Therefore, it is a very good thing to have a regulation that I must offer a chair to everyone who comes. My brother-in-law face fell. That everybody must have given the answer. So when he came home, he said, this is what happened. So I said, Madhukar, would you like to take a bet? I said, not only will he choose you, but he'll put you at the top of the list. So he said, Ramesh, don't make me feel worse. I feel bad enough already. And do you know, that's what happened. That is what happened. The moment he said it will be disastrous to the police, he knew he had found his man. So he said, I have nothing more to ask you. The rest of it is all on the record. Then ultimately, he was the top man in the Maharashtra. He was the top man in Bombay, in the Bombay. And he used to, and many chief ministers liked him a lot for the very reason that if they wanted the correct position, ask Mugwai. Because he gives you a straight answer, never any. So he was always a favorite. So 2 months before he retired, or 3 months before he retired, he went usual casual meeting with the chief minister. Chief minister here in Bombay. 3 months he has to retire. So he told him when talking, I'm to retire in 3 months. And he said, I've had a very fine time with you. I want to thank you for this. Because the chief minister said, what? You retire in 3 months? The position was the man in charge. He was number 2. The man in charge had 6 more years to work. The man in charge, he was number 2. The number 1, the man in charge of the state police, was 6 years still to go. And he was already on top. So, in order to prove the Guru as avatar, can you believe it? A chief minister asks the top policeman in his state to go on 3 months leave. So he goes on 3 months leave. My brother-in-law is made number 1 for 3 months. So my brother-in-law, he tells him, look sir, I'm very, very grateful. I don't have to say that. Tears in his eyes. I'm very, very grateful. But may I make a suggestion? He said, give me an extension only for 2 months. So, are you crazy? I'm offering you an extension for 3 months and you say only 2 months. So he said, it's this way. My number 2 retires 1 month after I retire. So if at 3 months, if I go after 2 months, my subordinate will have a chance of becoming number 1 and of all the pension benefits at least for 1 month. So I never met a man like you. So against all estimate, he himself said that thousands of people senior to me. It is impossible, but it happened. Therefore, Nityananda was an avatar according to me. On the other hand, this Aurobindo, Pondicherry, you know that? Aurobindo, white shirt. I've heard him on the CD, his voice saying that in 15th of August 1945, when India received its independence, he said, I heard it, he said, it was God's personal gift to me. On my birthday, 15th August 1945, India God's personal gift to me. But now the gift is only half because they have been divided into. After 25 years, the gift will be total. They are still fighting. Therefore, for me, on this basis, he was not an avatar. But it is a concept. Someone else may have another concept about an avatar. For another concept, Mother Teresa may be an avatar. So it is a concept. And again, it's public knowledge. Mother Teresa, he confessed that she died a broken woman. You know, you read that. She confessed to one of her, usually who she would go and confess. My life has been wasted. She was thoroughly. And that point is true because what I am saying, whatever you do, if you have a feeling of personal doership, there is expectation. What is the clearest indication that you don't have a sense of personal doership? You have no expectation about anything. Mild curiosity, biological reaction, maybe, but you have no expectation about anything. Whereas Mother Teresa had an expectation, which is why she didn't have the ultimate understanding. She confessed, I've done so much work, Nobel laureate, Peace Prize, this, that and the other, and I do so much work, everybody appreciates it, but Christ has not seen me. Christ has not given me an embrace. That was the confession. Expectation. Please.
Yes, it's about the statement of never being uncomfortable with yourself or never uncomfortable with the other.
Yes.
I guess the confusion I have is feeling harmonious with the other as a part of the concept of being enlightened or having the ultimate understanding.
Yes.
Can the body-mind organism still have for the biological reactions? For example, for me, it would be discomfort, or for example, if a person is argumentative or an angry person or short-tempered or just feels uncomfortable in intimate relationships.
Yes, but that is uncomfortable. That being uncomfortable beyond your control.
Yes.
That is the point.
But the statement of I am never uncomfortable with myself and I'm never uncomfortable with the other, if I have discomfort, that would tell me that I don't have the understanding.
But if that discomfort depends on someone else or something else over which I have no control,
yes,
that's no good. So this is where I am totally under my control. Someone makes me uncomfortable, I can become uncomfortable. In fact, my genes and conditioning,
Correct.
my genes and conditioning could make me uncomfortable.
Right.
That's why I have a hard time with the wording of that.
Yes, so that can make me uncomfortable, but that someone else makes me uncomfortable. Something makes me uncomfortable. I do not make myself uncomfortable. Therefore, I am not uncomfortable with myself. I do not make myself uncomfortable. I make myself uncomfortable when I think I hate someone or someone hates me. Usually, what makes me uncomfortable is something over which I have no control, which is the same as pleasure and happiness. Pleasure needs something or person to bring it into
So discomfort can happen.
happiness. Can
Is that
happen
what you mean?
without any thing or person. Happiness is an impersonal happening.
Right.
Pleasure is very much a personal happening.
I also have a challenge with the word harmony,
Yeah.
harmonious relationships.
Yeah.
It still seems that you can have an ultimate understanding and yet there can be strife. And that's not harmonious, is that
Strife based on doership.
right? Strife can happen, is that what you might say? Anger can arise, strife
Strife
can
happens
arise.
all the time.
Right,
And
Right.
therefore, the sage witnesses strife happening all the time and does not try to blame anyone for any strife.
right,
It is a happening
Right, right,
which
right.
had to happen, therefore it will happen.
okay. Just don't get involved in it.
That is the point. There is
Okay.
no involvement.
Thank you.
Neither hating anybody, nor loving anybody. Not saying this is right and that is wrong. It is a happening which simply had to happen. Not blaming or condemning anybody or anything. That is the core of it. Not blaming and condemning anybody for anything.
I think the false concept is that one might think if they have the understanding that they're going to have more comfortable relationships with people.
And that is the expectation.
Exactly.
And therefore,
And that causes suffering.
therefore, as I say, all I do whatever is necessary in any circumstances. Having done it, I sit back and witness whatever is happening without the least expectation about anything. And yet, as I say, biological reaction may happen.
Right.
Sometimes anger may arise, sometimes fear may arise, sometimes compassion may arise. I witness it as anger arising in a body-mind organism, which happens to be mine.
Exactly.
Compassion may arise at a particular moment in a body-mind organism, which happens to be mine. Therefore, no one gets angry. No one is afraid. No one is a compassionate person. Happening in a particular body-mind organism according to the genes and conditioning. Okay?
Thank you.
Right.